Hi, my name is Jeff Tedesco. I'm president and owner of ReadyToPlay. First, want to thank you very much for using our service to rip your CDs. We've got just a few steps to take before you can start using your music files inside of iTunes. But this video in particular is for those individuals who own a Mac and received all their files on a USB drive. You should have received a USB drive that came in a box that looks like this. This is a Seagate expansion drive. It comes in 500 gigabytes or 1 terabyte. It might have been a Toshiba or a Buffalo drive, but either way, we'd like you to unpack the drive from the box and plug it into the USB port that goes on to a Mac. Alright, once that's plugged in, we're going to go over to the Mac and first change some settings in iTunes. If you will, I'll bring up iTunes here, and you'll see in the upper left-hand corner under iTunes menu, there's an item called Preferences, and we're going to click on Preferences. You'll come up to the first tab, which is a General tab, and down here it'll say Import Settings. This is where you set your import settings for the fidelity of the CDs, of any CDs that you want to rip in the future. So if I click on Import Settings, the default setting that Apple sets is AAC encoder 128, which we at ReadyToPlay don't think is a good enough fidelity setting. Now, chances are you had your CDs ripped in Apple Lossless or MP3, and future CDs can be ripped in either of those formats simply by going here and selecting Apple Lossless and saying OK. The second tab we want to change settings on is in the Advanced side. So click on the Advanced button, and if you'll see, the first box shows the iTunes Media folder location. This is where all the files will go when we copy them off the hard drive. There are two boxes checked here called Keep iTunes Media Folder Organized and Copy Files. I want you to uncheck those so that we're going to manually copy the files to our Mac, and we don't need iTunes to keep the folder organized and try to move all the music around in the folder structure. Then you say OK. So let's minimize iTunes here, and now we're now set to copy the files. So the first thing we're going to do is down in the lower left-hand corner, you should see a program on the Mac called Finder. When we click on it, it will bring up, by username, a number of locations, of which one of the location folders is called Music. If you click on that, you'll see one called iTunes. You click on that, you'll see one called iTunes Media. Alright, and then a folder called Music. And this is where your existing purchases and downloads and anything that you ripped yourself is located. Alright, we're going to size that up in the left-hand corner. And as you can see over here on the desktop, over here on the right side, we have the expansion drive, which is highlighted here. We're going to open that up. Let me view it by list. And you can see one of two folders here, named Apple and MP3. Yours might be called Lossless and MP3 or Apple Lossless and MP3, and it depends on what rips you had done by us. If you've had Lossless and you want to bring that on the Mac and bring it into iTunes, then you're going to grab this folder. If you want to use MP3, you choose this folder. For sake of this example, let's select the MP3 folder. We're going to drag it over here and copy it. And what you're going to see now is a dialog where it's preparing to copy the music off the external drive and copy it from the external drive over to the C drive of your computer. We're going to give it a few minutes here, and as you can see, it's copying quite quickly. Now, if you have a collection of 200, 300, 400 CDs, it may take you 20 or 30 minutes to copy these files. What you want to do is make sure that you let the entire process copy over. All right? And we're almost done here. And for sake of brevity, I'm going to cancel the copy. So now we have a folder called MP3, and we have our other expansion drive. We can now close that. What I'd like you to do is later on disconnect that expansion drive and keep it for safekeeping. That's your backup of all your music. Now we need to add this new music to the iTunes library. Alright, so we'll open up the iTunes program here. We'll move it over a little bit. We'll look at our C drive location, and we'll find the MP3 folder that we had. If you just drag it over to iTunes, it will begin importing. There it goes. And you can see that iTunes is telling you that it's adding the files. So now what it's doing is it's adding these files to iTunes, and it's reading all of the metadata from the CDs that we ripped. You can see that it's processing and adding the folders. We can actually minimize this and let it go down. Now, if you have 200 to 300 CDs, you're going to want to let it and be patient. It'll take about 10 to 15 minutes for it to load into iTunes. But at the end of the process, it will all be inside of iTunes and ready for you to load to iPods, activate to the cloud, stream to Apple TV, whatever you want to do. Remember, iTunes is the control point for anything Apple, and so the music has to be in iTunes. Now, if you look here, I'm going to stop the process, which you don't want to do, but the point is that you let it go through, and now it's added these new albums. And you can go over, and in this version, you can sort them and see your Vladimir Ashkenazy, or your Arctic Monkey CD, or your Art Blakely Jazz Messengers. You can also sort the CDs by artist and see Andre Previn, Arctic Monkeys, Chris Brown, or you can see the artist by genre, and all of these show up and make it easy for you to start using and playing your music in iTunes. I want to thank you again for using Ready to Play, and hopefully this tutorial helped you in getting your files onto your Mac.